Hey everyone, thank you ever so much for coming to our latest SDR Leaders of USA Masterclass. My name's David Wilkins, one of the co-founders here at SDR Leaders of USA. And today we've got a really cool event for you all, which is going to be talking big picture around strategy, around the SDR function, but also we're going to be diving into certain aspects as well to really give you a more broader look of how to look at your and optimize your SDR team as we move into the next fiscal year. So without further ado, I will let the people who are going to be speaking today, our guests, I'll let them introduce themselves. So Jonathan, why don't we start off with you first? Who are you? Where do you work? And tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Jonathan Mayer. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I work for Remote. We are a company that helps other companies hire, manage, pay, and grow global teams. And I've been here for a little over a year. I love planning season. It's my favorite time of year. And fun fact about me is I recently got my sailing bareboat captain's license. Can't quite see it right behind me, but I proudly have it displayed that I am now officially allowed to enter a marina and drive off with a boat, provided I'm willing to pay the the deposit, which is sometimes steep for first-time captains. But that was my summer personal growth exercise was to learn how to become a sailor. So I'm now a captain.
Congrats, Captain. Well, looking forward to going on the boat. Tito, do you want to introduce yourself?
Cool. Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Tito Bohrt, based out of Miami, Florida. Been in the sales development space for about 15 years, since 2011. As a first line manager, then second line manager, then building a lot of teams as a consultant. And now running a company called Caddy. So yeah, fun fact about me. I lived in 5 different countries and speak 3 languages.
Very nice.
And those are Germany, Costa Rica, Mexico, Bolivia, and the US, if anybody's curious. So.
Yes.
And what,
Hola.
and what are the languages you can speak? Tito, what's the languages you can speak?
Languages? German, Spanish, and English.
German, Spanish, and English. Okay, wunderbar. Okay, brilliant.
Oh,
Sehr gut, yeah. Byron, and finally yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet everybody. I'm Byron Workman. I'm the Global VP of Sales Development at NICE. And I'm out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm originally from Texas area and have been in sales development leadership for around 11 years or so. And then before that, I was an enterprise AE at a couple different small companies and had a 2-year stint as the global VP of all of sales, as in I was the only salesperson at a really small company. So, but I'm really glad to be here and talk about some of my favorite subjects.
That's brilliant. So we've got 45 minutes today. We've got a lot of really good discussions and topics to discuss. One of the things I would ask is that if you do have questions, add them into the chat. I'm here checking the chat, and then I'll interrupt people mid-flow as they're talking, saying something amazing, ask them to answer your questions. I'll also be putting some questions in the chat as well, because it's really good to get your insights as we go through this, to see what's working from your side. So let's start off with a really easy one to begin with. And I'll let Tito, I'll let you start with this one. What's the one mistake leaders repeat every January?
I think it's interesting because depending on the size of your company, I think your CRO/CEO has like a business operating cadence that they're looking at, where they're looking at like monthly or quarterly metrics. And on the SDR leadership role, again, depending on the size of your company, if you're a really small company, I see SDR leaders very much in the like day-to-day firefighting. And I think the biggest mistake is the inability or like not taking the time to zoom out, look at like what are the main metrics that we're looking at, understanding like how can I improve those metrics, like what's the root cause of like the current state of the business, on where can I move the needle, and then get back into the weeds, try to go fix it, and do a constant zoom in and zoom out so that you can both manage up to your leadership and then also manage down to your BDRs to help them understand that making those $70 a day or $100 a day is super important, while showing your CRO that the revenue is coming. You're just going to be patient, and here's what we're doing to move the needle there. Really difficult job.
Byron, what's the one mistake leaders are repeating every January?
Yeah, I mean, adding to what Tito said, I agree on the zooming out aspect of it as being a main one. But I think that everyone's surprised that January rolls around. So we all know that we're going to have the beginning of a new year. We will likely have new quotas, new team members, new segments, if you align to sales. And we need plans for what the quarter is going to bring or what the year is going to bring. And we wait too long to start giving ourselves a time to do what Tito's talking about, to look at dashboards and metrics, or to build the dashboards and metrics that you need. So I'd say just waiting for someone else to tell you what your plan is as an SDR leader, I think is a really big mistake that people make going into a new year.
So, Jonathan, I'm going to ask you a bit of a tweak of that question. But why does this keep happening? This realization, oh, it's January, it's the start of the new year. Like, why does this keep happening to so many leaders?
Well, I think part of it's just the nature of the end of the year. You win so much at Q4 just with effort. Everybody wants to hit that full year quota. You got promotions on the table. You got lots of incentives. You're doing lots of heroic stuff in Q4. And when you drop back into the upcoming year, all of a sudden it's all about strategy again. It's all about what are the long-term things, what are the big rocks, and you kind of got to get focused back on them. I think the mistake that I continuously make, and I've done it 15 times now, probably like Tito, is I continuously underscope my key inputs, my key strategic levers. I will assume that the next year is going to follow on the same way that this one did, and I will forget how much pressure I need to keep on my key dependencies. And everybody has a different market, but there's always 2 or 3 things that have to be true for your sales development org in whatever market you're in and whatever size your team is, to keep running the way that it is. And if you take even like 1 minute of focus off of that, that stuff slips away fast. And so making sure that I've planned to maintain the pressure on my key priorities while everybody else is asking me, can you go further? Can you go faster? Can you go harder? Can you go bigger? Can we bring in some new tech? Can we grow the team? And you get caught up in that and you forget, like, your core dependencies gotta continue scaling with you into the new year. You can't let up on those. Don't underscope those when you're going through your planning season.
Amazing. Okay, great. Byron, question. Let's move on to a next thing around quick wins. So, if you had 30 days to show visible improvement within your SDR team in January, what would be the first lever you'd pull?
30 days, I would always go to some sort of process or tool optimization. It's something in my control. If no one else helps me on anything, I can go in Salesforce, whatever CRM team tool you use, and figure out some better way to optimize a profile. Or if I use some sort of sales engagement tool, what are some different statuses that we could use, or new sequences that we could make, or something like that, because I know it'll have immediate impact. It's usually within my control, and it's a way to build a lot of people's belief in me on my team, that I'll get into the trenches and give them a quick win when I can.
Jonathan, let's go to you next. What's the first lever you'd pull?
Well, I have a big team, and so what I'm usually focused on when I'm focusing on quick wins is, where do I have FTE holes that I can plug? A lot of times you've got an org that has different kinds of roles in it. You have different regions and territories. They produce pipeline at different rates. They produce meetings at different rates. They have different sorts of relationships with your inbound flow or allbound or wherever you're running. Usually there's a few holes as you cross over a new year where some FTE that was really valuable left and either got promoted or you put them in leadership or whatever, and you've got these little FTE holes. If you can plug those and maintain the trajectory you were on in December or in Q4, FTE is completely within your control. You don't have to go ask anybody for it. You got the headcount on staff. Make a quick shuffle and put your best people in a place where they can win. For me, that's a 30-day kind of strategy. Is like, I need something that's 100% in my control. Let me go plug my FTE holes and make sure that where the most productive seats are, I've got my most productive people in them.
And Tito, from your side, what would you be looking at?
Yeah, I'm going to answer this one very differently because I think both Byron and Jonathan are much bigger companies than I'm used to. But I'm working with a lot of like venture-backed, like Series A, Series B companies that are like about to raise another round of funding, or private equity firms that control a big stake in a company and they're trying to sell it in like 60 days or 90 days. So my short-term hacks to increase like pipeline like crazy would be looking inside of like my sales engagement tool. I use outreach.io, but figure out every person who has picked up the phone over the past year and just call him back. If you don't have a lot of historical data, there's a tool that I really like called Sure Connect. It can give you a lot of the like phone numbers that are very likely to pick up. I might get crazy enough if we're really in a crunch to try to raise as much money at the best valuation possible and it's pipeline dependent. Spin off a couple of inboxes, go throw some like crazy things like I don't know, clay tables through lead magic and whatever other things, and go do it. Now the caveat that I would give to that is a lot of these tactics for like short-term boosts are going to be very destructive 6-9 months from now. So you got to be very thoughtful about how you want to run your organization. Like if there's a really big incentive and you have C-level executives aligned to improve pipeline this quarter, but it might hurt you next quarter, there's certain things you can do to get a big boost really quickly. It might come bite you in the butt later on, but thought I'd give a different perspective for those in the audience that might need one.
Sure.
The Tito, the biting in your butt part, I think, is one of the things you hear a lot with spiffs. Like you might say, hey, I want a short-term improvement. Let's do some sort of competition or whatever. And I really like all the insights from people like Daniel Pink on Drive, like how people really are motivated and how you might be able to do something to push a lot of activity right now and have that boost, but then it ends up making it so you guys can't be as consistent later on. So I like that focus, because there's a trade-off oftentimes if you want too much right now of what you're going to hurt yourself later on.
I'll actually double down on that. My background, in college, I studied behavioral economics and decision neuroscience. If anybody has read those books, like Think Fast and Slow from Daniel Kahneman and I think his name's Jonathan Tversky, but they talk a lot about that. And if you add a lot of short-term incentives, you might actually create the opposite effect. There's a famous story in India about the snakes, right? Like if you brought a snake, I think it was a python to the government, a python snake to the government, and kill a dead python snake, you would get like $1,000. What people started doing is like breeding python snakes and killing them so that they could get the reward. And then as soon as the government ended that program, all the python snakes that were being bred were just thrown out in the wild. So the python population in the country actually increased post the incentive to kill the pythons. So you can do the same with your SDR team. If you ask them to increase just activity and you're like, okay, whoever gets to 100 dials every day will get another $20 a day. Great. As soon as you take that incentive, everybody starts making 40 dials a day. Because if you want me to make 100, now you're going to have to pay me. You recondition the brain for the wrong long-term behavior. So 100% aligned with you there.
Always a struggle, that in the spiff piece. I put in the chat as well, so it'd be really good to, if you want to answer in line for the audience here, what's the kind of first lever that you would pull in that first 30 days? We've heard quite a few, but it'd also be really good to hear from you as well in the audience, if you just want to write that down in the chat. The Tito, question for you, coming back to you, is then, you kind of mentioned some, but what's an underused lever in your current tech stack that's boosted your team's performance?
Yeah. I'll actually show the audience. I'm a little bit of a nerd, but I was preparing for this thing and I started taking notes in my notebook about like all the levers that you can pull as a team and what things are short term versus long term and like how do I think about it? I wanted just to share, very thoughtfully with the audience. So I think that the best lever for like long-term performance is actually SDR training, regardless of if it's via phone, email, LinkedIn, whatever it is. But it's a consistent way to continue to improve your effectiveness and efficiency. And there's really no limitations to that strategy, right? Like if you run the play of like parallel dialing, you're really shrinking the amount of time you can use that play. And then you're maybe even lowering your effectiveness and annoying some prospects because there's a delay on the phone. Like there's a lot of negative consequences. But if you're consistently training your SDRs on how to respond to email better, how to write better sequences, how to engage on LinkedIn better, how to improve your connect to meeting ratio, which might be a combination of how to improve your opener. So like I get very into the weeds in looking at metrics like what percentage of the times that a prospect picks up the phone and says hello, we're going to do our opener. A lot of people like permission-based openers. Hey, David, it's Tito calling from Caddy. Do you have a few minutes? Right? And how often does the prospect say, sure, what are you calling about? Versus, screw you, no, go to hell. I don't have time. I'm busy. I'm at the hospital. I'm in a meeting. I'm at the supermarket, whatever else. And like, if you just control that metric across the team, and I'm going to piggyback right on something that Jonathan was talking about yesterday in our prep, but you can look at the delta. Where's your best rep at? And where's your worst rep at? Can you find somebody that's at 80, 90, 95%? And then can you find the people who are like less than 70, less than 60? And then grab those people who are less than 60 and get together with them and go listen to the people whose opener works at a really high clip. And now try to copy some of the behaviors. Is it the tone? Is it the words? Is it how quickly they speak? What else matters? So I think SDR training is a big one. There's a lot of other ones that I have, but like properly configuring your tools. Make sure that if you're using Outreach or SalesLoft, if you allow your SDRs to send 1,000 emails a day, you're gonna ruin your domain reputation. There's a lot of like controls that you can put. A/B testing, messaging and sequencing, and reviewing the replies and what works. LinkedIn tracking, caller ID, leaving voicemails. There's a lot of like long-term sustainable ways to make your team better, minimizing bounce rates, eliminating failed leads, eliminating all sorts of like overdue tasks. So,
Byron, from your side, what's the underused lever in your current tech stack that's you found has boosted performance?
Yeah, one of the underused levers that I think is a little bit hard to start using, and so that I'll give you another one that's easier to start leveraging. But often people don't leverage reporting and dashboards in their CRM near as effectively as they could on knowing what's going on in their territory, like what industries are relevant or how many past interactions we've had with customers. There's just so many different ways you can cut and slice the data that you already have to figure out who's the best people to go after. And then when it comes into any type of strategic planning or pivoting to some of the things that Tito talked about, you can find in Salesforce or whatever too, to give you those dashboards that you need in order to be more of a strategic partner with your AEs or your sales leaders. But I was actually going to say my attitude on this has kind of changed in the last 4 months on what's underused. And I think it's the conversational AI, LLM type stuff that's available to everybody. I walked by my SDR the other day and he had built a bot based off of his favorite sales coach. And he would use it to give him coaching on call openers or how to respond to certain situations. And I think an SDR who can leverage that across everything they're doing, like which industry should I go with? How should I talk to people? Here's some information about my company. Those people, it's becoming the biggest gap I'm seeing as people who really heavily invest in the AI aspect of just the normal conversation type stuff versus those who don't is becoming bigger and bigger.
Nice one. Jonathan, from your side, and then I have another question for you after that.
Well, my colleagues here have certainly covered all the fun stuff out there in the stack right now. I have found one thing that makes all the other tech better, that sometimes goes under leveraged, and that is the incentives that the incentive that SDRs have to get promoted. When I talk to reps, I find that a lot of the reason that they're in this job in the first place is so that they can build a career. They want to get promoted. They want to become an AE. They want to, go up into the next level. They want to be recognized in the merit cycle. So you have this one side of an SDR's brain that's very coin operated. I'm going to pay you for every meeting. I'm going to pay you for every qualified op or every dollar one or whatever your comp plan looks like. But equally and maybe even bigger in an SDR's brain is they will do heroic things, adopt new operational patterns, try new stuff, drive themselves to be better as long as they feel like their trajectory towards a promotion is intact. And so there is a piece of tech like inside every SDR's head, which is their brain, which makes a very calculated estimate of how much effort and how much reward. And if you're not balancing the reward side with having a clear promotion path, having a clear at least progression path, milestones that they can hit that will tell them that they're improving their skills or positioning themselves better for a future career, everything else is going to go slower. They're going to be slower to adopt new things. They're going to be slower to take up that piece of new tech. They're going to be slower to chase the new KPI. They're going to be, all of that is going to go slower because you haven't maximized that incentive. And I mean, we're kind of circling back around to the same thing as before, but I'm really big on making sure we understand and we don't first do no harm to the incentives that are on the table when an SDR walks in every morning. And that's hit my quota and get promoted.
Brilliant. So come back to you straight away, Jonathan. There was a question that came from the audience. So we have 48 BDRs and we've got a couple of challenges. Cold calling is our primary challenge and we reach out to IT leaders. BDRs don't want to push more activity and our connect rate is horrible. How would you manage this?
Yeah. Well, the connect rate being horrible, that's an immediate disincentive, right? Like nobody wants, like it's really easy when the thing that's happening all the time is nobody's picking up the phone to just kind of stop there and have that kind of like be your last excuse. So if that was my kind of tactical problem, I would first want to go look at like what do I need to do to get my connect rates up? Is it bad numbers? Is it times of day? Is it call blocks? Is it whatever? You got to get that call volume up. And if you're looking at incentives that get call volume up, connects are the incentive. You're getting in at bat. That's going to get your call volume up. Then sorry, David, the second half of that, or I guess the first half of the question was, we're having we've got 48 reps. We're calling in IT. Our connect rates are bad. And what was the first part?
BDRs don't want to push more activity.
BDRs don't want to push more activity. So the wanting to push more activity, incentive for that is like when I call, people answer the phone. That moves the KPI that you're managing, right? If you can get the connects happening, now the person that doesn't want to make more calls, you can just move it to number of conversations. And you've got a whole new way to stack rank your team of how many conversations are you having. And all of a sudden, somebody that was making the most dials is now might be at the bottom of the list because they're actually not getting into a lot of conversations. So you move the KPI kind of like one step down the funnel. And so if you want to encourage people to dial more, you got to reset what they're chasing. Right now they're chasing connects. If you can get the connects up, which is almost always a data problem, then you get to move on to conversations, and conversations restacks your whole team, restacks the incentives, and you get to hit a reset button on everybody's motivation to hit that.
Byron, Tito, anything extra to add to that?
I do, but yes, I'll jump in. The biggest thing that I'm hearing in that comment is that the SDRs or BDRs don't want to make phone calls. And if you have 48 SDRs, like taking a moment just to say you hired 48 people to do the role and to give you feedback on what's working or not. And so I'm trying to align a little bit more as to what your goals are and what is the KPI, like Jonathan talked about, conversations from having phone calls. And there's focusing on that versus the metric and making sure you're getting quality conversations. But the first part, besides talking to them, coaching and training and setting expectations, I think it's there's a reason they don't want to make phone calls. It's likely because the people that they're calling aren't good conversations. They're not excited about the person they're calling. They don't know who the person they're calling, or they're not prepared for the phone call. So it can be a real quick thing just to run a report real quick, see what the job titles are for the people that they're calling, and make sure they're excited to actually talk to that person and focus there versus the activity will be a way to get people more engaged.
Tito, I've got some more context for you because the caller, thank you for Byron. The question asker said that their conversion rate from call to meeting is about 20%, and their show rate on the meeting is 75%. So with that added context, Tito, how else do you think this caller can manage this?
Yeah, and before I answer, I just want to highlight it's interesting to hear Byron and Jonathan both talk so much about dashboards and data and the metrics that they're looking at, because I think about it the same way, but maybe I'm going to go a level deeper on that. So I used to believe, and I've changed my mind, I used to believe my SDRs have no control over their connect rate, and that the connect rate is what it is. And I usually, because I've run a sales development outsourcing company for the longest time, and I continue to do over at Alti Sales, I actually put the quota per rep based on the average connect rate on the persona they were calling back in the day. I changed my mind about 3 years ago because I started looking at much deeper metrics. I looked at the connect rate by sequence, and I found out that there were some sequences that were connecting at 6, 7, 8%, and certain sequences at 1%. And the difference was, where are the leads coming from? I found out for some of my clients, when marketing was sending us leads, the way they were enriching those leads, they weren't using our full tech stack of data enrichment to enrich the phone numbers. And then they were throwing them into sequence, and we're trying to call our connect rate was terrible. So you start finding certain things. Even within my team, I used to have a report, what's the connect rate for the team? Now I look at the connect rate by rep. And when you look at the connect rate by rep, I saw crazy discrepancies. Sometimes a rep would have 2 or 3 times the connect rate. I started diving into their phone numbers. Certain phone numbers might have been showing a spam likely or potential scam, destroying the rep's connect rate, or some reps' behaviors. They were making calls, too many calls back to back to back to back to back from the same number, ruining that phone number, requiring them to get and acquire a new number. So there's a lot of things that I've done to increase connect rate. One of the ones that I also deployed is caller ID. Caller ID allows you to show the name of your company or even your personal name into people's cell phones when you call them. And that has really increased our connect rate. Then we found out some people, when you show your name, actually decide purposefully to not pick up. So what do we do today? Each of my SDRs has 4 to 6 different phone numbers. 2 to 4 have caller ID. The others don't. And we actually give them reports every month. The revenue operations team shows them at what times of the day do prospects pick up in what time zones. The behaviors of our prospects on the East Coast versus the West Coast are different. Like calling an engineer at 9 a.m. East Coast who lives on the East Coast versus an engineer that lives on the West Coast, and you call them at 9 a.m. their time, their behaviors are different because people work different schedules, there's different cultures, there's different processes. So now I empower my reps with all the data possible. My revenue operations team is incredible. And I help them see how can they improve their connect rate. Switch your phone numbers, call at the right time, pick your sequences thoughtfully, work with marketing, do certain things like run a report. If you're going to go, imagine I'm trying to sell to ZoomInfo or to whatever company like Salesforce. I can go into my outreach instance and look at all the people that I have as prospects and figure out who has picked up the phone before. Should I put them in a sequence that's a little bit more call heavy? Who has replied to an email before? Can I put them in something that's a little bit more email heavy? So if you start being a little more strategic and you start orienting your reps in the right direction, your connect rate can go up like crazy without you having to spend one more penny on data.
Brilliant. Let's change gears and move to more strategic thinking now. I'll ask you this, Jonathan, this question. Share a strategic change that you made in the business that didn't pay off immediately, but was worth it in the long term.
A few years ago, I was working with Splunk, and we needed to service our strategic segment with SDR outbound, and we decided that the profile that we had of talent within our commercial outbound segment didn't match up with what the strategic sellers expected. And so we went out and sourced some talent that was very non-standard. It didn't look like kind of traditional SDR talent. It wasn't early career. It was they were on professional tracks with consulting, and we worked really hard to recruit kind of like an initial core team, like a starter, kind of a starter house version of that team. And what they brought to the table was a level of analysis and synthesis that's really required when you have AEs or AEMs that have very small account sets, but they're very strategic. They're carrying $10 million quotas. They're deep in enterprise. They're for global 500 type size accounts. And over time, that team showed us how to think differently about account planning and about ABM and about account targeting because of the broadness of perspective and business acumen that they brought to the table. And that paid itself off not immediately. It took about 6 months before we really were getting quality pipeline out of that team. But the long-term impact of that team on pipeline, of being able to give us a competitive advantage over everyone else who was targeting kind of the same global 500 accounts. Our guys showed up more prepared. They showed up with better messaging. They showed up with better business acumen. They knew more about our customers' accounts than the competitors did, and that paid off in pipeline hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a really small tweak. It was not obvious that we should do that kind of to start out. But we took a gamble, and fortunately we had an executive team that was fully supportive of us trying something new. And that little seed of talent grew into the biggest pipeline channel that we had in the following quarters. In the first year we did it, it wasn't strategic at all. By the second year that team was in place and it kind of left their fingerprint on how we thought about doing campaigns and pulling data and analyzing our accounts, the impact was massive and completely unlocked 100%, 200% year-over-year growth in pipeline.
Oh, that's insane. Byron, from your side.
Yeah, they're kind of four pieces of one picture that I think it takes a while for you to get the benefits, but they're something everybody can do, no matter what company you're joining. There's always a need for it, and it's improving the hiring process, improving the onboarding process, the ramping process, and the performance management process. Those all, immediately, they don't really have a big benefit. You teach people onboarding, you wait for someone new to get onboarded, right? But they have an impact, significant impact for an SDR organization to be able to do all sorts of things with having people who are better able to adjust to new segment needs or are better prepared to get promoted into the next role. And you've taught the team, your leadership team, how to make change together by getting them all together and remaking the hiring profile. You teach communication, you teach setting deadlines and following up with the teams. And so I really like those four areas, as they're all strategic in nature. They take a long time and they require a big cross-functional effort with everyone in your SDR organization. And so those ones are some of the ones I think end up having the biggest impact too, when it comes to why is everything different all of a sudden? It's because you've been able to bring in really good talent and get them engaged. So
Brilliant. Yeah, fundamentals always. Tito, from your side.
I think they've given like the best answer. So I'll flip the question around and I'll say, what are the things you do to ensure that your performance doesn't decline over time rather than continue to improve it? Because I think Jonathan and Byron have covered that. But like one of the things that we've done is started creating automated notifications. A lot of people might know of these dashboards that RevOps creates. Sometimes they call it the "Don't be on this dashboard" dashboard. It's one of my favorite ones, meaning AEs that have deals that are 3 years old and still keep pushing back the close date, and it will never close with no activity in like 90 days. so on and so forth. But on the SDR side of the house, I do something slightly different. Like, I just want to make sure that my sequences aren't ruined. Like, I do not allow my SDRs to have any prospect in sequence with a task that is more than 10 days overdue. They get pinged publicly in a channel. It says, hey, David, you have 18 leads in outreach that have more than 10 days overdue tasks. Here's the link so you can get them done, right? And before they get pinged publicly, they get pinged privately twice, at 3 days and at 6 days, and at the 10-day, they get pinged publicly. So then everybody knows that they're like not doing their work. It's a little bit of a, like, it's not necessarily public shaming. It's not like terribly bad, but kind of like everybody knows you're not doing great. So I try to keep my team accountable and clean. We talk, one of our core values is ownership and accountability. So like, I'm going to remind you of the things, and it's your responsibility to just keep things clean, neat, and doing it well. Because what I know to be true is if your overdue tasks get to 20, 30, 50 days, right? Your sequence that was supposed to be 8 touches in 3 weeks, if each task is now overdue by 20 days, 8 touches times 20 days, 160 days, that sequence might end up lasting 6 months. And if it lasts 6 months, the person might switch jobs 3 months into the sequence. What happens? Your bounce rate goes up. Your bounce rate goes up. Guess what happens next? Your email domain deliverability starts going down. What happens next? Your calendar invites don't show up in the inbox. What happens next? Your show rate tanks. What happens next? You miss your quota. It's like crazy. So like keeping it clean and neat, kind of like instance and team, and like make sure that we do a really good job, really pays off, not necessarily by consistently improving the team, but like by really making sure that the long-term effects of these small cleanup mistakes don't hurt you long-term.
Brilliant. Okay, let's we're coming into the end now, so just a quick fire answers for these this question here. Byron, to you. When resources are tight, how do you decide what not to fix?
Yeah, I sat down one time with my leadership team and myself and put together all the different things you could think about as a sales development leader. And then we formulated that into a mission statement. And part of that mission statement were like key operational objectives. And that's been my guiding post. There's about 6 things I could tell you guys later or now, where it really summarizes all the things you can think about as a sales development leader that will drive different projects and activity and those type of things. So the first thing I would do if resources are tight is to start to get rid of anything that's not tied to the core purpose of us building pipeline and us building talent for the rest of the sales organization. And then start to think about which things we're the most ready for. A lot of times people talk about strategic change. It's always about what's going to have the biggest impact or the highest ROI. I first look for what is my team most ready to change? What do they think they need to be doing differently? Because they're most likely to do it. And that makes it so that you're off more successful. So find 5 things that will all get you to where you're going, and then see which ones your team are ready to start working on.
Nice. Tito, from your side?
I think that's a very hard question for me because I'm the CEO of the company. So I decide when resources are tight, which is but I'm going to answer this in a slightly different way. So like my belief of the world of like go-to-market and sales development is contrary to what most people believe, quite heavy on the operation side of the house and on the tooling side of the house. So if you look at the tech stack that we run a very expensive tech stack compared to most people. I just believe that like, if you give me headcount for 12 people, I'm much better off having 10 people with an incredible tech stack than having 12 people with a really tight, bad tech stack. Like the cost of an employee for me in my CEO role, on the SDR role, between salary, taxes, benefits, insurance, so on and so forth, will cost me $150K. If you just give me another $150K worth of tooling for a team of 11, 11 reps with $150K extra in tech stack can knock it out of the park so much better than 12 SDRs. Continue to believe the same when it comes to like training and management and like RevOps help and so on and so forth. So if you tell me, Tito, you either have 15 reps and no dedicated RevOps and only like $50K for your whole tool stack for the team, I would go to my CFO and say, no, here's what we're going to do. Give me 13 reps and add me 300K. With the 300K, I want a genius SDR ops person to come optimize the hell out of this team. And that's going to cost me 100 to 200. And then I want another 100K for better data. Anytime a lead gets into a sequence, I want to validate that the email isn't wrong. I want all the automated notifications for overdue tasks, fail leads, and all that. I want potentially a power dialer. I wouldn't go with a parallel dialer. I want better dashboards. Like, there's a lot of things you can do. So I would lower my headcount by 1 and negotiate with my CFO more budget for increased effectiveness and efficiency long term.
Jonathan, from your side?
Yeah, I have kind of an old Southern aphorism that I use here, and it's beware of a used hot tub. And the idea behind it is that every time I've ever been in a hot tub, I loved it. I was in a hot tub. It was nice. The lights were on. I had a glass of wine, had a beer, whatever. I loved the experience. A used hot tub seems like a great deal. It's cheap. You know, somebody's getting rid of it. Hey, you can have it for free if you'll just come get it. But a hot tub has like these hidden problems in it. It has super high systems integration challenges. The heater has to work. The pumps have to work. The lights have to work. You get in a hot tub where anything is broken and the experience is immediately degraded. So it has like this super high systems integration burden for it to be valuable. And then the second part of a used hot tub is like, it's already had its best days. Like the first person that got it, they got a warranty. They had somebody come out and service it. When you want to get in a hot tub, you want to walk out and it's ready to go. It's hot, everything works. You sit in, it's great. But the time of the hot tub's life when it could be like that was with the previous owner, and now you've taken it. So it's just kind of a way, it's kind of a reminder to me to like beware of things that look inexpensive and promise transformational experiences or transformational results, because a lot of times those things are coming with a really high hidden systems integration burden, or it needs to work perfect, but you don't use it all the time. And so free becomes super expensive. So I'm whenever resources are tight, you start to steer towards like these discount kind of ideas. Oh, this discount vendor, this lead guy, whatever. Here, it's only $5,000. We'll buy these leads. But you end up taking your focus off things that really do move the needle long term. And then second, you end up with a used hot tub on your patio, and you're gonna have to pay somebody $500 to rip that thing out and go throw it to the dump because it never really worked. So my advice in tight resources is don't buy a used hot tub.
I think that's a 19th century proverb, I think, if I remember correctly. Yes. So we're coming up to time now. So Tito, Byron, Jonathan, thank you ever so much for your insights and giving us big picture view, but also giving us this more on the detail side as well. Thank you everybody ever so much for the interaction in the chat. I think we got through all a lot of the questions that were asked also got answered as we were talking. And thank you ever so much for your time, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.